Live from Los Angeles, welcome back to Good Morning LaLa, and we're so excited to have Marni, the wing girl, in the house to give it to us straight today.
I've been looking for a wing girl. I'm not gonna lie.
Really, I will be your wing girl. I will
kidding.
do it. I actually work with mainly men.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I've been a wing girl for 14 years, and I started off by doing live outings with people, which was kind of shady back then, actually.
What do you mean a live outing? Like a fake date?
Kind of. So actually what I would do is I would go out with guys that I would meet on Craigslist. That's what it was 14 years ago.
That is so scary.
Oh.
Yes, because I would advertise myself as a wing girl, and then I'd go out and I'd pick up women for them. I'd see who was available, and then I'd help them start conversations and facilitate the conversation so that they looked as good as possible. That was my job.
I love how real she's being.
Yes.
She's not like making this fluffy story.
That's what I was doing.
priceless.
It was really, honestly, it was so much fun. And then I realized, maybe this is a little bit dangerous. And then my parents were like, oh, great, we sent you to LA to become an escort. That's what you're doing right now. I'm like, no, I'm actually doing something good. And the thing is, a lot of people couldn't understand what I was doing until I had a lot of media around me and I could explain that I was actually helping these men build up their confidence because I was giving them the tools, the skill sets, and also the know-how of how to actually do this on their own. And then about 6 months in, I discovered that I could do what I was doing online and create systems for guys that would give them this information without me actually having to physically be there.
So what does it mean to be, what are the steps to being a wing woman or wing man? Like how do you facilitate
It's really just being
that?
ego-free. So it's not about me, it's about this person who I'm trying to lift up and provide confidence to and just make them aware of how wonderful they are.
But there is something very special about you because you see in them maybe what they can't offer to women naturally.
Yes.
You bring that out in them. They get over the Mr. Nice Guy and they become a man that a woman actually wants to date.
Absolutely, that's 100% it. It's funny, I had this client yesterday who wrote to me and said, you know what, I find it really challenging because I have this weird background. I grew up in the jungle because my parents were like wildlife experts. I live in a tree house. I like all of these really amazing things. And he's like, well, what do I talk to women about? I'm like, you live in a tree house. You grew up in the jungle. Like, how absolutely amazing is that? And so many men think that if they're not the typical, really good looking with abs of steel, with a job in finance, that they're uninteresting or unattractive to women. So I help them realize what is attractive about them and make them comfortable with being themselves, which most of the things I teach them are things that I've had to learn about myself. So it's really interesting.
So Rob, would you prefer a woman or a man, wing man or wing woman?
No preference in terms of gender, just preference in terms of personality traits.
Personality.
Probably, Yeah, I mean, I love your approach. I think it's just fascinating. And I find that most men really do, of course, struggle with being one, authentic, and two, confident in their authenticity, right? And so what tips and tricks do you offer guys to sort of get around that? If they don't have you there with them and they're out on a date or maybe they're just networking, what would you encourage guys to do so they can be authentic but also confident?
I love Amy Cuddy's Superman pose. I think it's the easiest way to gain some confidence. But other things that I advise them to do is what I do for myself, where I have a rubber band around my wrist. And if I'm nervous, I start snapping it on my wrist. It gets me back into my body, out of my head, and triggers me to pay attention to the person in front of me. I mean, I have a whole bunch of exercises that I give to people, but really what I tell them to do is push themselves out of their comfort zone every single day. So if you're having issues being comfortable in front of somebody, try doing, like if you're in the elevator, try singing a song in the elevator while other people are in there and just not caring whether or not they think it's weird.
Good luck with that one.
Little things that talking to a very attractive woman won't seem as daunting for you if you're used to putting yourselves through these uncomfortable situations.
So I have a question for you. On the other end of the spectrum, as a woman, how would I become more approachable in a situation where maybe I'm in public and I want that guy to be able to feel comfortable to come talk to me?
Smile. It's
Huge.
the biggest thing.
Love that.
Like, men do not understand subtle signals. They need large, overt signals. I did this.
I see Jess.
I know, you're just like, I'm interested in you. No, I did this event in New York about 8 years ago, and my friend invited me to come speak for all of these women. And I was like, I don't talk to women. I don't know what I would say. I don't really know if I have advice for them. And she's like, trust me, you know more than you think because of all the men that you work with. So I went there and I started talking, and all of these women were very into what I was saying, but there was two that were sitting like this, watching me the entire time. And I just became so fixated on them. And I kept thinking, they don't like me. They don't like what I'm saying. So my speech was over and people came up to me and said, thank you. And then one of the women came up and said, I love what you had to say. I thought it was fantastic and it was really helpful for me. And I said, can I just do something to you for 2 seconds? Do you mind if I touch you? And she goes, sure. And I took her arms and I put them down by her side. I put her shoulders back and I said, can you please smile for me? And when she did that, she just lit up. And I was like, this is what you have to show to men, because you're not realizing that this is very, off-putting to other people. And it means you don't want people to come into your space. And she's like, I didn't realize I was doing that. So it's a big thing. So really just smiling and maybe even saying,
So
like,
important,
hi.
so important. So tell people where they can work with you, where they can find you.
Oh, they can go to winggirlmethod.com, or they can listen to my podcast, which is called Ask Women, which Robert has been on.
fantastic
He has
podcast.
been
Oh, nice.
fantastic.
It was
People
so
are
much
loving
fun.
what he has to say.
That was so much fun, though.
Yeah, so much fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, thank you, Marni.
Yeah,
We
thank
so
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank
and your
you.
eye. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more in Good Morning La La Land.